أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل فرجهم واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي السلام عليك يا بقية الله في أرضه. Right, in our last lesson we were speaking about قضاء الأجزاء المنسية, about tashahhud and sujood. And we said that these are the two parts that should be made up after salat. If a person omits tashahhud or sujood due to sahu, meaning due to unawareness. With sujood, it's a must. You have to make it up according to Sayyid al-Sistani after the prayer. With tashahhud, you have the option of making it up or not, but it would be better to make it up. One point we did mention is regarding Salat al-Ihtiyat. Sayyid al-Sistani Damadullah mentioned that Salat al-Ihtiyat comes before Qada al-Sajda. If you want to do Qada of Sajda, then if you want to do it, then obviously you do it, you have to do it. But after Salat al-Ihtiyat, we explained the difference between Salat al-Ihtiyat, Sujood al-Sahu, and Qada al-Sajda, or Qada al-Juz'. And then finally we mentioned a hadith by Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam in Wasa'il al-Shia concerning making up the sajda that is forgotten in prayer. Okay, so now we'll continue with the Fatawa of Sayyid al-Sistani Damadullah, where the online students, I sent you a part of the fatwa, which is in Minhaj al-Salihin. We're going to be reading Mas'ala 876. So we read the first part, and the Sayyid says, after saying والأحوط لزوما أن يكون بعد صلاة الاحتياط إذا كانت عليه وكذا يقضي التشهد إذا نسيه ولم يذكره إلا بعد الركوع على الأحوط الأولى. Meaning that if someone forgot the tashahhud, in the second rak'ah and did not remember that he had forgotten tashahhud until he entered the ruku' of the third rak'ah, then in this case he should continue his prayer. But it would be better, based on recommended precaution, that when he finishes his prayer, he does qada al-tashahhud. Okay? Yes, it will be a must on him to do sujood al-sahw, to perform sujood al-sahw. This is one of the cases where sujood al-sahw is needed. So let's write that down. One of the cases in which sujood al-sahw is needed, meaning it's a must that you do it in that case, is when a person forgets to perform tashahhud. One of the cases in which sujood al-sahw is needed is when a person forgets to perform tashahhud. After that, yes, Habibi. I believe in a bit he will mention what comes first. If not, I'll take you to sujood al-sahw, and there he should mention it, inshallah. Yeah, inshallah.
And would the same ruling apply whether it was the tashahhud of the second rak'ah or the fourth?
Yes, if tashahhud is forgotten, then yes, you have to perform sujood al-sahw. Yes. Okay. Then he mentions a mas'ala regarding the last rak'ah, and he says, ويجري الحكم المزبور. مزبور means مذكور. Okay? يجري الحكم المزبور فيما إذا نسي سجدة واحدة والتشهد من الركعة الأخيرة ولم يذكر إلا بعد التسليم والإتيان بما ينافي الصلاة عمدا وسهوا. What's he saying here? He's saying that if someone forgot التشهد and sajda, he forgot the sajda, the last sajda in his prayer, and he forgot التشهد, and then he performed salam, taslim. And after he had done what invalidates salat, whether it's done willfully or due to unawareness, after he did whatever invalidates salat, whether it's done willfully or out of unawareness, he remembered that he had missed the tashahhud and sajda. In that case, he must also perform qada al-sajda, and it would be better for him to perform qada al-tashahhud. The words are quite vague. Let me clarify them with an example. Yes, Muhammad Ali. Of the last rak'ah. Yep. He must do qada al-sajda. Yeah.
Where he is right now, just slow down.
Well, it depends on his case, because we're supposing here that he did something which invalidates the prayer when done willfully or when done due to unawareness. So possibly when he remembers, he's not even on his prayer mat. Jayid? Yeah. If he was still on his prayer mat and he's still on wudu, then yes, he simply goes into the sajda, does whatever needs to be done, and he'll have done qada al-sajda. Okay? He can also do the tashahhud. It would be better for him to do it. In that case, it would be mandatory on him to do sajdatay as-sahw, because we said he missed the tashahhud, right? Yeah. So let's give an example. I'll write a few points down as we're giving the example. مثلا, Jacob is performing Salat al-Maghrib. Okay? He's in Salat al-Maghrib. In his prayer, no accidents happen, no errors take place. He performs the salat perfectly, but in the last rak'ah, he forgets last sajda and forgets the tashahhud. So we're supposing that he goes into sujood, he says Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdih, and then he sits down. When he sits down, instead of going into sujood again, he does it taslim. Possibly he begins thinking about something which is happening in his life, but he forgets to do the second sajda, and he also forgets il-tashahhud. So he says, Assalamu alayka ayyuha nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin. Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. طبعا the takbirat are not part of the prayer. The takbirat, the last three takbirat are ta'qib. They're not part of the prayer. The prayer is done when the taslim is done. Okay? Now, Sayyid is supposing that this individual does something which invalidates the prayer when done willfully and also when done due to sahw. If you remember, we said a few weeks ago that when we look at mubtilat as-salat, some of the mubtilat, some of the invalidators of prayer will make the prayer invalid when done willfully, not when done due to sahw. Like what? Like talking. If I talk willfully, I'm in Salat al-Maghrib, in Salat al-Subh, in any of the salawat, the daily salawat, and I tell my friend, how are you? How's life? Inshallah, you're doing well. Jayyid. Khalas, my salat is what? Is batil. It's invalid. I've invalidated my prayer. But if I say, how are you, due to unawareness, due to sahw, مثلا, I'm praying and someone tells me, how are you? So out of unawareness, I say, I'm good. How are you? Then I remember I'm in salat. Here I can continue praying. Jayyid, because I spoke due to unawareness. طبعا, a person should not talk with someone who's doing his salat. Nonetheless, Yes, there are some mubtilat, some invalidators that break the salat when done willfully or due to unawareness. Like what? Like losing wudu. Okay? So now, going back to Jacob, he finished Salat al-Maghrib and he forgot the last sajda and the last tashahhud. Suppose Jacob mathalan went to sleep. He was very tired. He went to sleep. And after sleeping for 5-10 minutes, he woke up. Okay? So Jacob sleeps. He sleeps such that khalas, he can't hear his surroundings anymore, which means his wudu is gone. After he wakes up, he remembers that I did not perform the last sajda nor the last tashahhud in my salat. Okay? In this case, what happens? Khalas, his prayer is okay. His prayer is valid, but he has to do qada as-sajda. So because he slept, he will have to do wudu, and then he'll perform qada as-sajda. Inshallah, if we have enough time, we will mention what needs to be done when he's doing qada al-sajda or qada al-tashahhud. Yes.
That forgot to do a last sajda. Is that including both or just one?
Both of what? لا, one. Yes. لأنه both sajdas are a rukn. Okay? One sajda is not a rukn, not a pillar.
Just to finish it up.
Yep.
So he forgot his tashahhud and he forgot his sajda.
Yep.
He did taslim,
Mm-hmm.
and then he did something that breaks his salah, whether it was three or not. So what must he do?
So he must do qada al-sajda, and it would be better for him to do qada al-tashahhud, and he must do sujood al-sahu for the tashahhud that he missed. If he does sujood al-sahu for the sajda he missed, that would be even better. To sujood al-sahu, which would be 4 sajdas in that case, because each sujood sahu has 2 sajdas. Okay? I know it gets a bit confusing, but remember, sujood al-sahu is different than qada al-sajda. Qada al-sajda is simply making up a sajda that you did not perform in the prayer due to unawareness, due to sahu.
Sheikh, can you repeat it again, please? You're going too fast.
I'm sorry, afwan. Which statement should I repeat?
هلا, what we supposed to do? The question that the person asked earlier. You said qada sajda, qada sahu, and I think one
Yes.
more.
So qada al-sajda is different than sujood al-sahu. Sujood al-sahu, every sujood sahu has 2 sajdas. But that's sujood al-sahu. When we perform sujood al-sahu, we do 2 sajdas. In each sajda, we say Bismillah wa billah, Assalamu alayka ayyuha nabiyyu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Then, after the second sajda, we sit down and we do tashahhud and taslim. That's sujood al-sahu. جيد? Qada al-sajda is simply doing one sajda that you forgot. واضح? One sajda that you forgot. You might have more than one qada sajda, sure. But every qada sajda is one sajda. That's it. No tashahhud, no taslim, just one sajda.
Yes, Sheikh, I have.
So if you want, let's write that down. That way, you guys will not forget sujood al-sahu. Before I hear your question, sister.
Okay.
Where's the eraser here?
We could be downstairs for Dr. Abandon.
Oh, that's okay. No problem. Just this one. So for sujood al-sahu, we'll write an equation, a fiqhi equation. Sujood al-sahu equals what? 2 sajdas plus 1 tashahhud plus 1 taslim. That's sujood al-sahw. 2 sajdas, 1 tashahhud, 1 taslim.
What's the niyyah again for it? Like when
Sujood
you,
al-sahw.
okay.
قربة إلى الله سبحانه وتعالى.
So Sheikh, you started to, you just say, لما تسجد the 2 sajda, سبحان رب الأعلى وبحمده.
أحسنتم.
Okay, you come back up and then astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh, then you go back, you do another sajda, then you do tashahhud or taslim, صح?
For sujood al-sahw,
Yes.
لا, in the sajda we say Bismillah wa billah, Assalamu alayka ayyuha nabiyyu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That's
هذا
what we say in the sajda. In between the 2 sajdas, you don't have to say anything.
okay.
And then after the second sajda, you say tashahhud and taslim.
Okay, so that's the for the sahu, right?
Sujood al-sahw, ahsantum.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. No problem. Yes, but qada tashahhud is not wajib for Sayyid Sistani. Yeah. If you miss the taslim, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa Muhammad, then there's no qada at taslim. There's no qada for taslim. La. For the taslim, if you miss it, it would be better to perform sujood al-sahw. Yeah. It would be better to perform sujood al-sahw. So qada al-sajda, qada al-sajda equals what? 1 sajda. With these equations, you'll be able to differentiate better between sujood al-sahw and qada al-sajda. Qada al-sajda is just 1 sajda, khalas, done. Yeah? And I'll give you a heads up to what we will read. You do it the same way you do it in salat. If you do qada al-sajda the same way you do it in prayer, you're good. So you go into sujood, put the 7 body parts on the ground, your forehead's obviously on a turba or something similar to a turba, something from earth, made from earth, like a pebble, something that comes from the earth, sorry, and you say Subhana Rabbi al-A'la wa bihamdih. You're good. Yes, sister, go ahead.
Okay, for qada for 1 sajda, if you miss, let's say ركعة العشاء, there's
Mhm.
4 ركعات, but you miss 1 sajda twice. So it's no longer considered a sajda, right? Because there 2, but from different ركعات. This way you have to do ساعتها sujood al-sahw.
So you miss 1 sajda
Yeah,
from 2 rak'ahs, right?
yeah,
So 1 sajda from 1 rak'ah and 1 sajda from another rak'ah, right?
yes.
Yeah, so then you'll do 2 qada sajdas.
Oh, 2 qada sajda. So it won't be equal to sujood al-sahw, you count 1 here, 1 there, that makes 2 sajda? No?
No.
So you have to count it from the same rak'ah twice, then you do the sahw, right?
It's not from the same rak'ah, but you're gonna have to do 2 sajdas. 1 qada sajda for each sajda that was missed. And on top of that, it would be better for you to do sajdatay al-sahw twice, because you missed 2 sajdas in prayer due to unawareness. For each sajda that was missed, it would be better to do what? To do sujood al-sahw. So in total, you would be doing 6 sajdas. 2 that are qada sajda, and 2 and 4 that are actually part of sujood al-sahw.
Yani you have to in this case you have to do both sujood al-sahw and qada al-sajda.
La. No,
No.
no. When you miss a sajda due to unawareness, you don't have to do sujood al-sahw.
Okay.
Yeah. You just do qada al-sajda. That's for Sayyid Sistani. If you want to do to add precaution, you want to be more precautious, then no problem. It would be good to do sujood al-sahw, but it's not a must.
بس سؤالي is I missed one sajda in the second rak'ah, and then on my fourth rak'ah I missed another sajda. You don't count it as two sajda, right? For you to go end up doing sujood as-sahu. You count it as one, but in each rak'ah. You understand what I'm trying to say?
أنا فهمت عليكي. You count each sajda that you missed as one sajda, صح. Because
Oh,
you technically missed one sajda from each rak'ah.
okay, so you only count it as one. But in this case, if you miss two in different rak'at, this way I do it twice, qada al-sajda.
Yes, if you miss one sajda from one rak'ah
Uh-huh.
and one sajda from another rak'ah, then
Okay.
you have to do two qada sajdas.
And here I only say Subhana Rabbil A'la wa bihamdi.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
You can say مثلا سبحان ربي الأعلى بحمده اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد بس
Okay.
إنه يعني whatever you say in sajda, the sajda of prayer, you if you say it in the qada sajda, the qada will be valid. It will be correct. You will have done your duty.
So I don't have to do taslim or tashahhud, right? I just do that. Okay.
One
Sure.
sajda. أهلا وسهلا. All right. So Sayyid says what? He says ولم يذكر إلا بعد التسليم والإتيان بما ينافي الصلاة عمدا وسهوا. So in Jacob's case, when he misses the last tashahhud and the last sajda due to unawareness, and then he remembers after he loses his wudu, for example, okay, he has to do qada al-sajda, and it would be better for him to do qada al-tashahhud, plus he would have to do sujood al-sahw for the tashahhud that he missed. Okay, Sayyidina, what if he remembers before he does that kind of invalidator? He says, وَأَمَّا إِذَا ذَكَرَهُ بَعْدَ التَّسْلِيمِ وقبل الإتيان بالمنافي فاللازم تدارك المنسي والإتيان بالتشهد والتسليم ثم الإتيان بالسجدتي السهو للسلام الزاد الأحوط وجوبا. We mentioned this before, but I'm not going to take much time in explaining it, but quickly just to translate what the Sayyid is saying. He says, if Jacob, for example, the person who forgets to perform the last sajda and the last tashahhud, if he remembers that he missed the last sajda and the last tashahhud after he does taslim, but before he does the invalidator, which invalidates the prayer, whether it's done willfully or due to unawareness, if he remembers it at that point, then he should do what? He should go back into the prayer, perform the missed sajda, perform the missed tashahhud, and then perform it taslim. Why does he perform taslim again, Sayyidina? He already did taslim because he did taslim without a tashahhud, without doing the last sajda. So he's saying here, he goes back, he does the last sajda, and then he does the last tashahhud, and then he does taslim once again. Once he does that, is he done, Sayyidina? No. He still has one thing to do, and that is sujood al-sahw. But this time, sujood al-sahw is done because he has an extra salam. He added a salam. واضح؟ We're talking about the second tashahhud here. Yani we're talking about the last tashahhud. The last tashahhud. Makes sense? So here, what happens, let me just write a few points or a few words so you can visualize the situation better. So I'm going to write phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is what happens to Jacob before he remembers. And phase 2 is what he does after he remembers that he missed the sajda and the tashahhud. So in phase 1, he completes the prayer without the last sajda and the last tashahhud. That's in phase one. Now, when he remembers, I'm going to write here, he remembers in between the two phases, he remembers. When he remembers, what does he do? He goes back and performs number one, the last sajda. Number two, the last tashahhud. And number three, the last taslim. But in phase one, he had already done the last taslim. That's what we're supposing. He had done the last taslim. So we're going to write here concerning phase one, the last taslim was done.
That phase two now?
What is it?
Is that phase two?
I wrote this regarding phase one. In phase one,
When he remembers.
the last taslim was done in phase one. After he remembers, he does these three deeds. He performs the last sajda, he performs the last tashahhud, and he performs again the last taslim. He's obligated to do that. But now realize, taslim has been done twice in his prayer.
صح.
Because of that, the Sayyid is saying he has to do sujood al-sahw, because he has added a taslim. So Sayyid al-Sistani says, in this case over here, he must perform sujood al-sahw because of, let me say due to the salam that was added, due to the additional salam.
Sheikh Salam is the same as Taslim, right?
Yes, صح.
Thank you.
You're welcome. واضح إن شاء الله؟ طيب, after this he says, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا يقضى غير السجدة والتشهد من الأجزاء. We said this multiple times. He says that sajda and tashahud are the only two parts of salat that have a qada. Sayyidina, what about qada as-salat as a whole? He says that's qada of the salat. You're making up the whole prayer. Making up the whole prayer is a thing in fiqh. We do have something called qada as-salat. But for qada al-ajza, the only parts that are made up after the prayer are the sajda and the tashahhud. One day I wish to do qada of al-qira'ah. I can't. Why not? Because these are Allah's rules. They're not my rules. I cannot make up my own rules. If I do, that's going to be a big problem, because we're going to enter the world of bid'ah, the world of innovations. Okay, so I can't make up matalan, let's say ruku. After I finish Salat al-Dhuhr, suppose I miss one ruku, and I say, khalas, I'm going to make it up after Salat. You can't. Bala, I can. No, you can't. It's Allah's rules, not yours. You have to abide by the rules of God, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says ويجب في القضاء ما يجب في المقضي من جزء وشرط كما يجب فيه نية البدلية. So here he's telling us how to make up the sujood, the sajda, and how to make up the tashahhud. Yes.
The only two parts is
Yes.
what about salat al-ihtiyat?
That's not a juzu. That's a full rak'ah or multiple rak'ahs, because in some cases salat al-ihtiyat consists of one rak'ah, and in some cases it consists of two rak'ahs. واضح؟ And by the way, salat al-ihtiyat is not qada. It's not that you're making it up. You're doing salat al-ihtiyat to fix a possible error in your prayer. When you doubt, for example, between the third and the fourth rak'ah, and then you apply the ahkam, the rules of salat al-ihtiyat. What does that mean? It means, in reality, it could be that you've already done 4 rak'ahs, four complete rak'ahs, and you've added salat al-ihtiyat because Allah Ta'ala wants you to do that, right? To be on the safe side, in case you missed any rak'ahs. That's possibility number 1. Possibility number 2 is no, your salat consisted of only 3 rak'ahs, not 4. But salat al-ihtiyat compensates for the missed rak'ah. واضح? So it's not technically qada. It's an act of precaution that will fill any gap that might be in your salat regarding the rak'ahs. واضح? So السيد دام ظله. Yes, sister, go ahead.
So what's the niyyah for that?
Salat al-ihtiyat.
It's called Salat al-Ihtiyat.
The niyyah for, if you're talking about salat al-ihtiyat, yes, the niyyah is salat al-ihtiyat.
In this
Salat al-ihtiyat qurbatan ila Allah Ta'ala.
in this case, if you prayed لنقول المغرب مش عارفة إذا صليتها 3 أو 4
For Maghrib and Salat al-Subh, there is no Salat ihtiyat.
for عشاء.
Salat al-Ihtiyat only applies to the 4 rak'ah prayers.
أوكي، يعني إنه تكون أنت يمكن مش عارف بين 3 أو 4. That's when you do احتياط.
أحسنتم. صح.
And you do it, I think you said
That's one case, يعني one case.
Okay, I think you do it in niyyah. You don't say it aloud. You say it in your heart. And
You don't utter the niyyah for Salat al-Ihtiyat, yes.
and
After you finish your prayer, you get up for Salat al-Ihtiyat, right? In some cases, you do it while you're sitting down. Nonetheless, whether you're doing it while you're standing up or while you're sitting down, you don't utter the niyyah. You don't say usalli salat al-ihtiyat qurbatan Allah Ta'ala. You know what you're doing. As long as you know what you're doing salat al-ihtiyat because Allah Ta'ala wants you to do it, then khalas, the niyyah is there.
And I think you only say Fatiha, right?
Say Allahu Akbar. What is it?
You only say Fatiha, right? You don't say Qul Wallahu after it.
صح. صح.
Only
al-Fatiha when you are doing al-qira'ah. Right. Okay?
Yeah.
Ya hala. So here Sayyid tells us that for al-tashahhud and al-sajda, the conditions that must be found in the sujood or the tashahhud in prayer must also be found, must also be fulfilled or upheld when we're doing qada al-sajda or qada al-tashahhud. Okay? So the conditions that have to be fulfilled when you're doing sajda in salat or you're doing tashahhud in salat must also be fulfilled when you're doing qada al-sajda or qada al-tashahhud after the prayer. Same conditions. What about the parts? The same parts must be done. The same ajza must be done. So for example, with tashahhud, you have certain words that you say, right? The same words have to be said in qada al-tashahhud. In sajda, you have certain words that you say. Same words must be said in qada al-sajda. Make sense? On top of that, there's one extra thing that needs to be done with qada, and that is niyyatul badaliyah. He says, وشرط كما يجب فيه نية البدلية. Meaning that when you are doing قضاء السجدة or قضاء التشهد, your intention must be that you are doing this sajda in replace of what of the sajda that you missed. You're doing this sajda because of the sajda that you missed. واضح? So in better terms, you're replacing the missed sajda with the sajda. The same goes to the tashahhud, qada al-tashahhud. You're replacing the missed tashahhud with this tashahhud. Yes.
Just quickly, let's say you go to sajda, but you forget to recite the zikr and you come back up. Or in tashahhud, you missed half of it. For example, you recite half of it and you move forward.
Okay.
Would it be the same? You do the qada completely, or
If you missed part of the tashahhud, do you do qada completely? I'd have to check. Not sure at the moment.
and about sujood?
What did you miss?
I went into sajda.
Okay.
I didn't say anything. I got back, and I thought I completed my sajda, but later I remembered I forgot to do the zikr.
Okay. So here the sajda was not technically missed. What was missed is the dhikr. Yeah. You missed the dhikr, not the sajda. Yeah. Yeah. جيد? Yes, Habibi.
You mentioned that whatever you say in the sajda in regular prayer, you have to say in the sajda that you do after the salah, that for the sajda, right? For the sajda.
Whatever we say in the sajda must be said in qada al-sajda. Yeah, يعني in sajda, you have to say, for example, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdih. You have other options, right? But if you say Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdih once, that's enough. So the same applies to qada al-sajda. If you say Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdih once, خلاص, you're good. Sayyidina, I don't want to say Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdih. All right, what do you want to say? Subhanallah 3 times. Okay, say it 3 times, no problem. If you say Subhanallah 3 times in the normal sajda, the sajda which is part of the prayer, your sajda is correct. صح? It's valid. The same applies to qada al-sajda. Say Subhanallah 3 times, you're fine. Yeah. وإياكم.
عندي سؤال.
يلا خليني بس اختم الصف وبالخدمة إن شاء الله. I'm gonna have to stop here. We had a few points left to mention. Inshallah, next week we'll mention them. والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على المصطفى محمد وآله الطاهرين.